Good morning or afternoon, evening, depending on where you're at in the world. This is Phil Ritter, and this is the monthly Magma community meeting. We have a rather small group this morning, but we're hoping to have a much more larger and dynamic session next Wednesday at our Magma Developers Conference, which we'll be talking about shortly. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into this morning's material. And our agenda for today, we are going to do, as we always do, start with a brief overview of the Magma project. We're going to talk a little bit about the developer conference coming up next week, just briefly to preview that, and then do a status update on the 1.4 release, which is being prepared right now, and then have an open Q&A session for the attendees of this meeting. So in introducing the Magma project, Magma exists to reduce friction in deploying wireless data services by providing an open source, low cost data core that can be used to support a wireless data network being deployed without having to bear the burden of the high cost or licensing structure that typically accompanies such things. Magma is a fully open project. It's being run in the open. It is licensed with a very permissive BSD3 clause license, which permits almost any use of the software that's developed. It's designed to be flexible and extensible with many parts of it built around a set of open APIs, and intended to be reliable, as you would expect for a wireless data core product. Magma itself is built around three major components. It's the Magma Access Gateway, which actually provides the core services representing the functions of an SNP gateway, the MME and HSS in the 3G model, converged with Wi-Fi support and a built-in AAA and an access gateway for centrally managed Wi-Fi. And under development are 5G standalone services supported by the UPF, SMF, AMF, and associated components. These are packaged together in an integrated access gateway that can be deployed either in a cloud deployment or on very lightweight appliances, as simple as a 4-core platform that you could hold in your hand and run fanless to support small networks of up to about 10 eNode B or gNode B when the 5G is developed. Secondly, it's constructed with an orchestrator and network management function. This is a central function that is typically deployed in a cloud, public cloud, but can be deployed on premises on dedicated hardware that provides management services for a collection of access gateways and delivers a set of REST APIs that can be used to integrate with larger scope orchestration systems or other management tools that are needed to run the network. And then finally, Magma delivers what we call a federation gateway. And the federation gateway is used to expose standard 3GPP interfaces to the elements of the Magma core platform, including GX, GY, SH, for roaming, S8, so that you can integrate with other wireless networks or a more traditional mobile network operators core platforms. Together, we've built this for primarily fixed wireless access use cases, private 5G use cases, and we've seen a lot of interesting deployments in the US with CBRS deployments for private wireless networks. Internally, the access gateway is constructed using a gRPC interprocess communication method and a state set model rather than action model, which is a much more modern and more stable interface. It is extensible, and we're really excited about bringing this out to the industry. That's the basis of the platform. And I want to talk a little bit about the software project itself. Magma has a number of contributors. It started several years ago as an incubator project within Facebook Connectivity. Early in 2020, the project was delivered to open source. In Facebook's terms, graduated from the incubator and delivered as an independent open source project. And the project is formalizing its governance structure, which will be announced next week on February 3rd at the Magma Developers Conference. The principal developers come from teams of engineers from Facebook Connectivity, the Open Air Interface Software Alliance, support from the Open Infrastructure Foundation, and contributions from companies like Radisys, ACL Digital, formerly CalSoft, FreedomFi, and Wavelabs. The project itself, as you can see, is very dynamic with a great deal of activity going on in the software project repos themselves. Definitely not a project that has been delivered to a point and then sitting there stagnant. And it is getting quite a lot of response in the industry. As you can see in the second chart, for the last 6 months, we've been averaging well over 100 clones from the GitHub repository every month, which is a fairly exciting rate of use. Of course, in that you might see several repetitive cloners, but it is a very dynamic activity. So that's the summary for the project itself, just the overview. I want to talk just for a minute about the Magma Developers Conference. Next Wednesday, February 3rd, we'll be having an all-day event, and you can see here on the chart a link to the registration page, which will also include the agenda. And Kendall, maybe if you could just drop this link into the chat to make it convenient for people to copy from the bridge. It's also been published on the Magma Announce Slack page, and most of you, I think, have probably had the opportunity to see that because that's the primary way you found your way into this meeting. Also want to invite people to join us in a number of ways. The Magma Core website is up and operating. Our GitHub repo at github.com/magma/magma and our Slack, excuse me, are all very active right now, and we would love to have you come join the project. So I'm going to shift just a little bit before we get into our Q&A. Back in November, we offered a preview of intent for what we were having the development team focus on for the 1.4 release. And I wanted to give a status update on those features and capabilities that are coming in the 1.4 release. The 1.4 release is actually being packaged and given final test before we put it out as an official release. We had targeted January 28th as the release date, but I believe at this point it's going to be at least a few days behind that due to some late updates that came in over the last few days. So we talked about the release having a number of core features. The high availability features for the release are complete and are tested, and we're including them as a preview release. We're not considering them to be GA because we would like to see some field test data gathered from some of the actual deployments. This is not a fully transparent high availability. It's actually a capability where a second instance of the access gateway could pick up service in flight should a node fail, and it was demoed during one of the prior community meetings. We've also included initial support for VoLTE and IMS. Magma itself is not providing the IMS capability, but the features that are necessary in the gateway to support IMS are released in 1.4. We have an improved call trace capability, a header enrichment for delivering the MSISDN to specific URLs, and there is a link in this document which we'll be posting to the Magma Slack channel shortly after this call. And then also mobility restriction based on areas. And this is intended to support multi-carrier operation. We've also made a number of improvements in the network management system. We've upgraded the S1AP support for release 15 and 5G non-standalone support. That work is actually partially complete in 1.4 to deliver features that are comparable to what you see in the research core from OAI. And then we have a VPN enablement that will be available from the API. And again, there's a link to the design document embedded in this document. Right now in 1.4, the CLI commands to set it up are complete. The API will be delivered in a further point release beyond 1.4. And then for general platform improvements, stateless operation of the MME functions, which was an experimental feature in 1.3, is fully supported and enabled by default when you configure a 1.4 system. Now, there were a few features that we had promised for 1.4 that we weren't able to complete in time to make the release. The full implementation of release 15 and non-standalone support will slip to 1.5 or perhaps a point release of 1.4. Full IPv6 support was not completed. We do have IPv6 support for the UE, which is required for the IMS implementation, but full support of IPv6 throughout the platform is not yet complete. There's a typo in this because it indicates the stateless is deferred. That's incorrect. I'll correct it before publishing. And we did not complete testing on Python 3.8. So the platform is still operating on an earlier release of Python. And the gateway containerization delivery at this point is deferred. We don't have the artifact repository complete to be able to deliver effectively on the containerized deployment. And the 5G standalone integration that we had intended to be able to deliver as part of 1.4 will be delivered in 1.5. And we'll talk more about that during the developers conference next week. So those were the project updates from me. I'm going to open the floor to Q&A from the attendees here today and welcome your questions.
Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Can you hear me? Hi, Philip. This is Yanman from ARM. I'm very new to project Magma. So just to get more information, do you happen to have a link? I can take a look to see where we are on each state, each step, and what's the current status, all those things.
Yeah. So yeah, Jan, the project is managed as a GitHub project, and we are using GitHub issues as our primary tracking tool. And if you take a look on the Git and look inside the issues, you'll see that each issue is tagged with a feature or capability or release. And you should be able to see the live activity going on that within the GitHub issue. I know that it's not a perfectly packaged method to see that way, but it is the most transparent way that we could put the project together so that all of the history of how we got to each point is completely visible. So that's the best pointer that I can give you. We don't have a project manager status tracker or anything like that going on the project. Is that helpful?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just a quick question on that, Philip, just in terms of performance or call models or thinking about how we scale compute to support different call models. And any thinking on that, or is that something we can work on?
So if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Oh yeah, Lorcan Burke, working in VMware, but I took, we did that mobile data offload project with Magma in Ireland.
Yep.
So we've an AWS instance and an on-prem instance. We're also looking at how we how we might have a base instance on-prem for, say, a private LTE deployment that we might burst to AWS or Azure for capacity. Just trying to figure out how we cost model the performance side of Magma deployments.
Thanks, Lorcan. Appreciate the introduction. For the project, we do have some sizing and performance data that is included in the release notes of each of the releases. But I think what you're looking for is something more aligned with a planning guide or a planning tool for different sizing options. And I don't think that I have anything like that that we can point you to today. What we have is more measurement of maxima in different conditions.
Okay.
So I will go back to the team and see if there's something we may have that hasn't been published that we may be able to make available.
Brilliant. I mean, part of it, Philip, is just to be able to discount other people saying, the people will say things about performance, for the other kind of call it the main packet core vendors, right? But I think there's a lot we can do with this to get projects up and running quicker. And I just want to be able to negate any of that negative feedback.
Thanks. I'm just making a note to myself on that too,
Yeah.
to get back to you on that.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting to see this stuff getting launched, though, by the way. Very cool. Good job.
Thank you. We're very excited about it too, and I think you'll hear more about that next week if you can join us during the developers.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be there.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I don't want to belabor this and hold people too long if we don't have additional questions for the Q&A session. I want to let you know part of the reason for the brevity of this morning's meeting is that everyone is working very hard to prepare and have a great conference next week. At the risk of overselling just a little bit, please do make time to join us next week. I think we have some very exciting announcements coming about the organization of the project and things that should give us even more momentum in the marketplace for open source software and leadership in this space. So please join us next week during the Magma Dev Conference. And I'll make one last call for questions. Hearing none, I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and I think I will bring this session to a close. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Take care. See you all soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.